have some questions on the role of strength training as it pertains to fighting? Well, if so, stick around because I just might have the answers to your questions. Hi, I'm Tony Cecchine and welcome to the channel. You know, long before I learned how to wrestle and fight in general, I wanted to be strong. Back in the days when I was a kid, there was an expression that was, all the world loves a strong man. And believe me, that really hit home with me. I used to be very thin, always undernourished, and looking to get strong was something that to me it was a pipe dream. But it was one that stuck with me. And, you know, when I read biographies of other, let's say, bodybuilders or strong men, a lot of them were in the same position I was as a kid, so I could kind of relate. Unfortunately for me, I really didn't have a way of getting strong until I started wrestling under my coach, who was a famed strong man. But before him, I just had that love and that desire. And I can remember even trying to mail out for a Charles Atlas course, and I got his little advertisement book, and then I realized how much this was going to cost. And I'm like, well, I can't afford this. But every so often, if I could earn a little bit of money, I would get a magazine or I would buy like a little book that would give me some exercise tips. And one of the first books that I remember reading was by Joe Bonamo. And I guess he had a series of books. But I mean, they were really tiny, almost like the size of the palm of your hand. And I may actually still have those books, or at least one or two of them. And they were, that I learned later, pretty much a takeoff on Charles Atlas. You know, a lot of isometrics and isotonic type of exercises, but that's pretty much what I did until I got old enough to develop a weight training program with the help of my coach and more knowledge that I gained just from other sources. Because of a congenital back injury, I learned probably in my later teen years that doing any kind of squats were pretty much out of the question. I did a lot of free squats, no weights, and that was fine. But it was the having the weight across my shoulders and bearing down that caused my back a lot of problems. Deadlifts were okay because the weight was below and I was able to stand up. But it was the going down with the weight across my shoulders that really was a problem. So I focused on my upper body strength, which when it comes to fighting is the single most important area of your body to really focus on, in my opinion. As the years went by, I was fortunate enough to set records in the strict curl. I wanted to have the strongest arms in the world, and arm strength really plays a role when it comes to fighting. Not so much boxing per se, but any kind of all-in grappling oriented rough and tumble type of fighting, because you want to be able to have that pushing ability and that pulling ability. And boy, when you have strong arms, you know, you're kind of resistant to a lot of locks, and once you clamp onto a guy, it's very difficult for him to get away. It's physically exhausting for him to attempt to do it, and it's also psychologically defeating for them to realize who they're up against. And also because of my coach, I learned early on the importance of having a tremendous grip, because as I mentioned previously, to this day, he had the greatest grip of anyone I've ever met. Coin bending, everything, you name it. The guy could do it. Now, I never reached that level of grip strength, but my grip was good enough that, you know, nobody was going to break free once I got a hold of them if we were really going live here, or if it was a life and death situation. Now, for those of you who don't have any injuries, by all means, practice your squats, you know, build them up to a degree. I am not saying don't do that. But many of you have some sort of injury. And instead of giving up, well, you just have to learn to work around it. That's what I had to do, and I recommend that that's what you do as well. Also, I think that you should really focus on your neck strength. And let me explain. In wrestling, the neck is very important because you don't want to get pinned, and so you'll use your neck to bridge to keep your shoulders off the mat. In boxing, a strong neck helps you absorb punches. So if you get hit in the head, you know, you're not going around like a pinball. Now, while having great neck strength is important, through the years, I've talked to numerous doctors, and they're all in 100% agreement that the way traditional neck bridges are done can be very dangerous for your neck and can cause lingering injuries. So if you were to train with me, I teach people alternate ways of doing neck development exercises and the proper way of doing neck bridges. So any of you who are out there that are looking to embark on that, please be careful what you do, or reach out and sign up for one of my training programs, and I'll share all my strength tips with you. It's also important to develop your core, your hips, your abdomen. That's really important for absorbing punches and just to give you, again, the explosiveness that I talk about a lot. Some of that will come from your core muscle groups, so do not overlook that. It's really important to train that region. I've never been a bodybuilder, but I admire them, and I know the discipline and the dedication that it takes to do that. But bear in mind, while I'm not saying there's anything wrong with bodybuilding, there's certain exercises there, the exercises to actually make your appearance better, that you don't really need when it comes to fighting. If you look back at the quote-unquote greatest fighters of all time, very few, if any, could have been champion bodybuilders, right? It's a different sport, it's a different approach, and again, you only have so much time to devote to learning how to fight, so your strength training should be geared to make you a better fighter if fighting is your top priority. One thing I learned early on is to look at training for strength or size like a suitcase. And if you have a smaller suitcase, you want to make sure that you can pack it properly and put as much stuff in that smaller suitcase before you start looking at bigger and bigger suitcases. And the reason being is we don't want to become so physically large that it hurts us in other regions. Like it may slow us down or it might gas us out, because it's a balancing act. You can't have one without the other, okay? Meaning, you can't be the strongest and largest and heaviest man in the world, yet be the fastest man in the world. There's trade-offs, okay? So you have to find your specific balance point that works best for you physically and mentally. Now for me, I was always thinner and very fast, so I knew that any size gains was going to hurt my overall speed. Now, I wasn't going to have a career as a world-class sprinter, and I wasn't going to play NFL football, so I'm like, okay, I can sacrifice my running speed as long as I didn't sacrifice my hand speed very much, okay? I felt that I needed to develop that strength, so even though my punches might be fast, I needed to have the proper arm strength for a grappling situation. So I worked out routines that enhanced my physical strength without really taking away from my arm speed as much as you might think it would. There also seems to be a misconception about strong guys not having technique, and that's just total hogwash, and it's normally started by skinny people who don't have any strength, so they're looking for a way to kind of diminish what the strong man has. Believe me, technique cannot exist in an atmosphere void of any strength. If we had no strength, we wouldn't be able to move at all. So strength is a component of technique, and it's one that needs to be admired and aspired to. When it comes to self-defense, pretty is out the window. You want to be effective and you want to be quick. The longer you engage with somebody, the more risk of something going wrong. So as good as you can be physically and mentally is as important as how many techniques you know. So in the heat of battle, if you have to use your physical attributes, why wouldn't you do that? Okay, this is not a performance art thing where you're going to be getting graded on how well you look. No, I tell everybody, real fighting is very ugly, and it can be at times random chaos. So the better you're prepared physically and mentally for this, the better off you're going to be. You know, I generally have to be vague when I make a video because there's so many people out there that are coming from a different point in their life that there's no like one size fits all thing. So generally what I'm saying is work on your push-pull muscles, work on your core, work on your neck. If you really want specifics, honestly, and I hate to sound like a salesman, but join up with me for personal training. We can do the distance program, be it the Tri-C or some other training regime that I offer. Just go to my website and you'll see it. And then I can personally help you along the way with everything: diet, strength, speed, endurance, you name it. But for those of you who are just starting out, I suggest my Lucky 13 for cardio, worth the wait for basic exercises using weight equipment, and the circuit breaker as well for a little next level Lucky 13 type of training. And if you're strictly looking for body weight exercises, well then that's my routine video, which shows a bunch of body weight exercises that you can do in your living room. Strength will always be a part of my life. I don't live and breathe fighting 24 hours a day. My strength has come into play more than my fighting ability, and the same is for everybody in the world. We use our strength throughout the day. No matter how great or how not so great it is, you have to use your strength constantly. So if you can make yourself more efficient, why not? The trick is to make sure that your injuries, because you're going to eventually have some, are not life crippling, okay? And that does happen. I personally have gone through injuries that, required surgery. That's part of it. It's a gamble. But for the most part, I look at it as the lifting, the fight training has kept me going all these years and has helped me overcome congenital problems that would have otherwise held me back. Well, in closing, I want to say thanks for checking out the video. Always I say I'm at catchrussell.com, so if you have any questions or want to delve deeper, you know where to reach me. Please hit the like and subscribe button and ring that bell so you can get updates on any future videos that I release. Once again, it was great seeing you. I'll see you real soon.